Hello and welcome to HMG Network, broadcasting live from the Greater Washington, D.C. Metropolitan. My name is Freeman Singirankabo, and thank you for joining us for another power-packed message of In Pursuit of Justice. Our conversation for today, we are going to talk about a case filed against the Rwandan government for an enforced disappearance. And our moderator for today is going to be none other than our brother Claude Gatebuke, who's going to be moderating and also conducting the conversation for today. And just to let you know, in case we get any issues, hacking or things like that, I just want to let you all know, especially those of you who are following us live from the social media, to just keep in mind that you can always go back to Humus Man Gifts main channel, or the African Great Lakes Action Network. So you should be able to follow those conversations without any issues. We anticipate no problems today, but just in case we get any of the interruption, know that we are going to still be live regardless. And with that in mind, I want to give a welcome to our brother Claude Gatebuke, who's the Executive Director for the African Great Lakes Action Network, and who is going to be taking it away from here. Claude Gatebuke, brother, can you hear us from here?
Yes, I can hear you, Freeman.
Good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you are today.
It's still good morning here.
Good deal, brother.
And our guest today is very early in the morning. So very excited. Thank you for the welcome greeting. And I am today doing hugely terrific as one of Africa's best sons, Shaka Sali says.
Nice.
I'm excited about our conversation today because it's a conversation that brings hope to truth tellers and justice seekers. As someone who has seen and experienced deep injustices and have also seen the results of courageous acts, I could not be more excited about having this conversation with Noel Zihabamwe. While this is a heavy subject, you may experience some humor along the way. The process of healing sometimes provides those opportunities. You are in for another great show with lots of learning from our guests. However, learning is useless if lessons are not put to their purposeful use, to a helpful use. Today's talk will challenge all of us to get out of our comfort zones. Thanks to our guests. And let me just use an analogy. You know, I love analogies. Having knowledge and not using the knowledge is like having a whole bunch of gift cards, a whole bunch of gift certificates in your house, and you just keep them, never cash them, and they expire. So use the knowledge that you get. Before we start, I would like to start by thanking our sponsors today, HMG Studio, very grateful for the platform, AGLAN, African Great Lakes Action Network, Friends of the Congo, and Black Star News. So for those of you who are watching at home on HMG affiliates, we also thank our HMG affiliates around the world. Please invite a neighbor and help them learn a little bit about this practice, of course, disappearance practice. If you're watching on social media, please share the links, Facebook and the YouTube links, so that others can also join this conversation. We look forward to engaging with you. Today's topic on enforced disappearance in Rwanda is an event that happened, but it's very common. It happened in Rwanda, which is a small country in Central Africa, mostly known for its horrific genocide that happened in 1994. It is also widely known through the Hollywood film Hotel Rwanda, narrating the story of a man who sheltered over 1,200 people in a hotel during the genocide. I also had to shelter, so I know how important that kind of act was. Today's guest is just as courageous in a different way. You may have also seen the recent human tragedy with volcano eruptions in Goma, Congo. That's right next door to Rwanda, in case you, our viewers, are having a hard time finding Rwanda on the map. It's a very small country, but it's right next to the Congo and Tanzania. It's kind of smashed in between those two countries. And what can you expect in the talk today? We'll hear about the case that Noel filed with the UN, the reasons he filed it, what we can all do, and we'll take questions and answers and comments from the audience. So our guest, Noel himself, Noel Zihabamwe, is an Australian of Rwandan descent who filed a case against the government of Rwanda with the UN. He is a human rights activist and a community leader in Australia. His two brothers have been missing since 2019. He's here to share the story of his brothers, not to have a pity party or for us to simply say, I'm sorry about what happened to you and your family, but to inspire and show the importance of refusing to be compromised and the importance of seeking justice, even in the worst and the most complicated cases. He's here to challenge us to act on principles of human values, humanity, and compassion. His courage is an inspiration to me, and I hope it will inspire every one of you watching this program. And without further ado, I welcome you, Noel, to this program. Welcome and thank you for giving us the time today.
Thank you, Claudia Gatebuke, for your warm welcome. And of course, I also want to thank the HMG studio for hosting us. It's my pleasure to be here with you tonight. I know over it in early morning. And I also want to thank whoever is watching us from four corners. I hope we're going to have a wonderful conversation over the case that we're going to discuss very shortly. Thank you.
So, Noel, I want to start with asking, tell us about this complaint that you filed and what is the purpose of filing this complaint?
Well, thank you. We have filed a complaint with the United Nations Working Group on Enforced and Involuntary Disappearances, which is in short words, the WGEID, over the disappearances of my two brothers, Jansen Imana and Antoine Zihamwe, who got abducted in Rwanda in 2019. So the purpose of this complaint was, basically to seek justice from the government of Rwanda to find out where my brothers, who are the victims of enforced disappearances, might be. So that's a case. That's the purpose of having filed this complaint.
So let's talk to our audience then. Let's share what actually happened to your brothers and why do you think that the government of Rwanda can do something about it? What happened?
So briefly, my two brothers were traveling by bus from the capital city of Rwanda, Kigali, to Eastern province. The bus was stopped and boarded by police, and my brothers were called by name and removed by police from the bus. And the driver was told by police to continue the journey and not to reveal that my brothers, had been removed from the bus. So my brothers haven't been seen or heard from since.
So you were saying basically the police took them out and told everybody not to say that they took them out and no one has seen them since.
Right, correct.
And what would lead the government of Rwanda to abduct your brothers? What do you think happened? What may be do you know if there's some type of reason, or did you have anything to do with the government of Rwanda, or did they have any case to answer to, which they should have been produced in court instead of, being disappeared? What happened?
Look, there have been a number of incidents, but briefly or recently in 2016, or there was like a community event. It's like a community dinner, and during that dinner, I was personally approached by by the then Rwandan High Commissioner and his commercial attaché, and they asked me first of all to collaborate, to work with them, and I was very open, asking them what kind of collaboration, what kind of work you guys want to do with us, and so they say it's like it's a simple but not simple to me. You can just, inform on other ones living, for example, in Australia. I was I categorically refused on the spot, and then when I refused, that's how the retaliation started. There were a number of threats that were made, especially the threats were made during the community meeting in Australia. So that was the first incident. And in August 2019, I shared the story of this harassment with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation.
Noel.
Yeah.
Just to for the audience to understand, you were asked by the government of Rwanda to basically inform on other exiled Rwandans in
correct
abroad.
Right.
And
right.
Is this something they do all the time, or was it a unique opportunity for you?
Look, I'll not say the things that they do, but what I can say, they did this to me, but I'm not sure to others. But this happened to me, so I have experienced it. By saying that, so I say the things that I mean. I say the things that I have faced. And as I was saying, in 2019, there was this story that was being documented by ABC television here as part of the broader report, on Rwandan informants operating actually in Australia. So this followed a number of other documentaries relating to foreign interference. There was a number of documentaries about China, Iran, Russia, and those a month later, when the report was published, my two brothers, Jean Sengimana and Antoine Zahamwe, were abducted by the Rwandan police while on a bus, as I said in the morning. So we haven't seen them since then. And of course, this has been nearly 2 years since their disappearances.
So I think for the audience to understand the implications of you refusing to take part in this. So I know that this is a practice that's actually this is something that's widely done. The government of Rwanda uses informants around the world, everywhere. There were reports in Canada of people, just around the same time actually, as the ABC report was maybe a month or two after. That talk about a particular case of a spy who was sent to Canada, but there's a bunch of them. They've been caught in Canada, they've been caught in the US, they've been caught in Norway, in South Africa, in various countries. But the implications, I want the studio to pull up this video showing what happens, because one of the things that the government of Rwanda does is they use their party members to do this work. But they also have non-party members or unofficial people who do this work, either voluntarily or they get paid for it, and they do it through the community and community relationships. But I want to show the kind of oath that people swear to and how violent it can get, because you talk about being threatened and people may think that this is a simple threat. But studio, if you can pull up the video showing the oath ceremony that was captured on video in the UK for the audience to follow. The sound itself is in Kinyarwanda, but you'll see the words of what they are actually swearing to, including accepting to be beheaded if they do not perform the duties that they are assigned to perform. Studio, do we have the video queued for the swearing in? If you would run it, please, would appreciate it. So the audience understands the implications of what Noel did, refusing to take part in this practice.
Twese murasubiramo. Ndahiriye hagati y'abanyamuryango nemeza ko numvise neza. Ndahiriye hagati y'abanyamuryango nemeza ko numvise neza imigabo n'imigambi FPR Inkotanyi yiyemeje guteza imbere kugira ngo buri munyarwanda wese ari muto ari umusaza ndetse ari n'uzavuka mu bihe bizaza
kugira ngo buri munyarwanda wese ari muto ari umusaza ndetse ari n'uzavuka mu bihe bizaza
azagira agaciro mu gihugu cye cyangwa se n'ahandi azaba ari hose
azagira agaciro mu gihugu cye cyangwa se n'ahandi azaba ari hose
ndahiye nemeza kandi nsezeranya ko ngomba kwifatanya na buri muntu wese uri mu FPR Inkotanyi muri iki gihe no mu bihe bizaza nemeje ko ngomba kwiyumvisha ko buri muntu wese uri muri FPR Inkotanyi agomba kurindwa kugira no kugirwa inama kugira ngo twirinde ibyago byose byagwiriye igihugu cyacu n'abagituye bose nemeye kandi ko nzafatanya n'abandi kurwanya abanzi b'u Rwanda aho bazaba bari hose ndahiriye kandi mu maso y'aba banyamuryango ko nzakurikiza amategeko yose ya FPR Inkotanyi ariho nazashingwa nzirinda gukora amafuti guhemuka kuzarira n'ayandi makosa yatuma igihugu cyangwa igihugu cyacu kigwa mu icuraburindi banyamuryango muri hano n'indamuka mpemutse nkoze ibinyuranye n'imigabo imigambi amategeko bigenga FPR Inkotanyi zaba mpemukiye buri munyarwanda zabambwe nk'umugome wese
Thank you so much for our studio staff for running that clip. So for those who have any doubts about how dangerous Noel's refusal to cooperate with the government of Rwanda in Australia, this is what people swear to. This is the oath that people take. But you don't have to take an oath to actually work for this government, for this regime. In fact, Noel himself is not a member of the RPF. Noel, are you a member of the RPF? Are you a sworn member of the party in Rwanda? So,
I will never.
But the youth community members who do these things and those who volunteer themselves or who are duped into it, they actually do these things. So you were talking about how the report itself was not about, the ABC report was not about your brothers, right? It was about your brother's case was among a wider community thing. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, then in that case, go ahead.
So the documentary itself was actually covering a number of incident cases involving many community members, not only mine as well, but a number of other cases that many Rwandan members have faced here in Australia. So the ABC documentary interviewed a number of members who have faced similar circumstances, and I was part of those. And I was part of that documentary, and I was actually sharing what I have faced, specifically when the former High Commissioner was in Sydney, hosting that community dinner.
So we actually have it. If I can ask the studio to run the clip, a little bit of, we're not going to run the whole documentary, we're just going to show a short clip so that the audience can see what was a part of that documentary that shows this, again, this practice of spying on the community, what they were asking you to do, the kind of functions they were asking you to perform. If you would, please, studio, would you run the clip?
Another refugee who asked not to be identified out of fear it would endanger his relatives in Rwanda claims the country's non-resident High Commissioner to Australia threatened to execute him in 2017.
The threats made against me were that the Rwandan government is extremely strong, and whoever resists will die in a vain. That there's a gun pointing at me, and he was ready to shoot.
Now based in New South Wales, the man says the diplomat delivered the warning to his sister at a community event and urged her to pass it on. High Commissioner Guillaume Kavaruganda did not respond to questions from the ABC. The tiny East African country, home to just 12 million people, hit the spotlight in the final days of the election campaign. Two Rwandan men who had previously faced the death penalty in the US over allegations they'd slaughtered Western tourists in a Ugandan jungle had been resettled here under a so-called people swap deal with America. The Prime Minister insisted the pair were no longer suspects.
They were cleared of those particular matters.
A sentiment shared by the Rwandan community in Queensland.
Most Rwandans who live here in Queensland view these two gentlemen as people who may have been used as scapegoats.
2 weeks after the men's arrival came to light, Rwanda's foreign minister, who has never been to Australia before, touched down, attending a conference on the Gold Coast. It prompted some in the refugee community to question the timing, speculating he was sending a warning to stay silent.
They're prepared to invest in cutting off any lines of dissent. They control things within Rwanda pretty well. It's dissidents abroad.
This matters because hunting refugees halfway across the world undermines the entire concept of asylum and safe haven. It might be Rwanda in this instance, but the nation's leading foreign analysts say other countries like China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Malaysia and Cambodia have also been known to take similar steps here. It represents a problem for Australian sovereignty, which is why...
for running that clip. Noel, before we proceed with the interview, I want to know, can you share with the audience, what exactly did the Rwandan ambassador say to you?
So he gave a speech in Kinyarwanda, of course, mixing with English. And during that speech, the accusations and the threats were actually, directed towards me. And part of those threats and the actions, I remember very well some of the words he used. And if I put them in English, although some of them were many of the threats were actually in English, but he said that myself, Noel, I'm on the top of a hill that has no foundation, and I will fall off soon. He continued saying that I was under a tree that will fall. And the Rwanda is very strong, and all people who dare to oppose them, we die in vain. And this is what was going to happen to me. And he continued saying that there's a gun pointed at me, and the Rwandan government has photographic evidence of myself, and I better be careful. I feel myself more Australian than Rwandan. And that I'm actively subverted voting by Rwandans in the recent elections. So he accused me of refusing or subverting to be part of the Rwandan election. And of course, he said that I was not cooperating, in preparing those elections. And those accusations, to me, honestly, was very serious, and there was no choice other than reporting them.
So he basically was trying to force you and trying to blackmail you into cooperating with the government of Rwanda. And he called you a traitor and said that you would die, you would be killed, not die, like this, not a car, and not illness or something, that they would actually harm you, they would kill you. And they had a gun
exactly.
near your head.
Sorts of that kind of like intimidation, and also, of course, same thing, harassment. And I think he was meaning it. Imagine if I was in Rwanda, what was going to happen to me.
Well, we know that people have been killed for non-cooperation. We had a conversation here. I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago. With it was on the series, Our Stories, Our Survival, Our Resilience. So we could tell their stories, where Miss Natasha Abingene talked about her father being assassinated for not cooperating with some investigators that wanted him to frame somebody. So these things happen. These things are real, and a lot of Rwandans are assassinated around the world in various countries. This is not a secret, but most people watching probably do not know this. Most of the world.
Very true. And the people we never know it unless it happens to them.
And we should not wait until it happens to us.
Exactly. I will never wish anyone, to wait until it happens to them. So that's why. So we all have a duty of care to, to look after ourselves or to look after others.
So, back to your brothers, what steps did you take the last 2 years to find your brothers?
Look, there's a number of steps that we took. First of all, so my family back home, contacted the Rwandan police and the, Rwandan Investigation Bureau for assistance. Unfortunately, none was forthcoming, and of course, we intervened. We did the same. There were number of contacts, made to see or to try to, to locate them, but none of those channels, worked. And then later on, we engaged with the international human rights organizations. They tried their best. Nothing worked. And of course, and then we also engaged with the local authorities from from the sector level to district, and also even on the top. There was also a number of diplomatic and political attempts that we also attempted, we also tried, so to see if the things can work out, but none of those channels used worked. So actually, every channel we used was fruitless.
So most of the audience is probably wondering, like me, with you going to the government of Rwanda to ask them to basically investigate themselves because it was their police that abducted your brothers. That's like me, being robbed, or somebody steals $100 from me, and then I go and ask that person to investigate, what happened to the $100, and ask them to return the money. Like, I'm sure the audience is wondering, what was the reason that you went to the Rwandan authorities to begin with, knowing that they're the ones that took your brothers?
Claude, excuse me, that question is somehow.
Excuse me for the humor, but every once in a while we have to.
The question is very simple. The other hand is very hard. But what I can say from here is that, of course, we knew it, that the police took them, they took them, of course, and we always know that, there's some bad police, and also corrupted police everywhere, not only in Rwanda, you know this, and
Yeah.
So and of course, what you want to do first of all, was to go through formal channels, despite having that knowledge that police are the ones who abducted them, despite having credible evidences. But we said, yes, we still need to engage with the police because police are there for the safety of people. And whatever happens, citizens go to police, for help. So that reasons that we said, let's go through police and see if they can help us. Of course, understand. I also wanted to see, if the government of Rwanda would act in a good faith, probably, enforce its laws by producing my brothers or finding them, and also, most importantly, by, persecuting or prosecuting the perpetrators of those atrocities. So far, nothing has happened. We know people who've been involved in this case, but they've been trying not to cooperate with us, despite, of course, as I said, having the credible evidences.
Yeah, I think actually it's good to at least give them and give anybody a chance to and an opportunity to act in good faith. So as you said, when things happen, there's all these claims that there's always bad cops. So they prove that it wasn't really just bad cops. It seems like it was the whole system. And I was gonna ask if you actually, now understanding that you wanted to go through that process, I was gonna ask if you exhausted all the local steps, but then you mentioned that the government of Rwanda did not act in good faith. So I see why you would proceed without going through them. But before you filed this case with the UN, for the sake of the audience or anybody who may be wondering in the audience, did you complete all the steps with the government of Rwanda?
I would say that I did my best. We reached out, we contacted whoever we could do so, but as I said, there was no outcome. So people, as I said in the beginning, from the beginning, you contact the local police or the real people, they will tell you that they are willing to, to show you where my brothers are. Then after 1 hour, you ring them back. Either the phone is switched off or the people changes, the conversation which was very positive, like 1 hour ago, and then it turns to telling you that they don't have any information about it. So they keep playing that kind of game, as you know. That's why I say, look, you know what? Those people are playing over people's lives. They are joking. So this is not a joke. It's a serious case. And if we've been trying to engage with everyone and no one has wanted to cooperate, so what else can we do? So we have to say, we have to use or to engage, with the other stakeholders. That's where we end up, approaching the UN.
All right. So now let's talk about the fact that most people watching probably have seen Rwanda presented as a model country, and Kagame is seen as the visionary leader by people like Tony Blair and Bill Clinton and Rick Warren and some of his high-placed friends. And a lot of audience is also unfamiliar with Rwanda. They are probably wondering, is this a unique situation or an unusual act, or is this part of a pattern, these enforced disappearances? Like, what happened to your brothers? Is this, usually when somebody's lost, there's a big search, there's a big effort to search for the person. But it seems like they're playing you. Instead of searching for your brothers, they're just, sitting there basically, playing some delay games, to keep delaying and hoping you go away. And good thing that you've given them an opportunity to act in good faith. But is it just your two brothers, or has this happened to a bunch of other people?
Claude, this is not a new case. This is not a case. So let's answer this question by by using the kind of references, kind of some reports that have been compiled or have been made by different international organizations, even some individual countries. So let's take a report made by Human Rights Watch. The report shows that there have been a number of enforced disappearances since the current regime took power. enforced disappearances have been reported, to have occurred everywhere in the country. So let's start with what the report says. I'm happy to read some of the report here, saying that since 2014, people have continued to disappear, and it is suspected that those disappearances are politically motivated. According to Human Rights Watch report, those cases are the latest in a long line of suspicious disappearances, politically motivated arrests and lawful detentions in Rwanda. Also, a report points out that those circumstances increasingly involve suspected government opponents and critics. So there was also a very recent report, from Universal Periodic Review, UPR 2021, saying that the UN Committee Against Torture urged Rwanda that to ensure that all allegations of those enforced disappearances be investigated by an independent authority. So the committee encouraged Rwanda itself to undertake prompt, impartial, and effective investigations into reported cases of extrajudicial executions, enforced disappearances, murders, and also including any possible complicity in those acts by members of police and security agencies. And bring, of course, perpetrator to justice. And this is what I've been always saying. So the committee stated that Rwanda should take all necessary measures to combat impunity for the crime of enforced disappearances. So failing to do so, let me come back to my case. The failure of Rwanda to respond to my inquiries about my brother's disappearances exactly reflects a broader and systematic problem in Rwanda, and that indicates that the Rwandan government has failed to comply and implement the recommendation made in its recent UPR report. So that's what I'm saying now, that it's not today's case. The case of enforced disappearances has been happening for a long time.
Noel, I would add that our generation is actually being wiped out, and through these enforced disappearances and the extrajudicial killings. There was a report that showed that nearly 600,000 young people between the age of 10 and 25 in the years 2005 to 2016 have gone missing in Rwanda. That is almost as many people as were killed in the horrific genocide that we talked about. That is how many people have been just in our generation, just this one generation, almost more than 500,000 people have gone missing. And there's this language that's used, when people say suspicious or mysterious, to minimize this crime, to minimize the effect of it, to minimize what it does to human beings. I think it should be a spade is a spade. When they are abducting and killing people, it should be called abducting and killing.
So, Claude, of course, we understand, but those are terms are used by those international organizations, because sometimes, they don't want to specify the cases, but they want to use those soft terms, to see if there's a way that those countries stated those reports can improve. But it doesn't mean that they don't know what happened. But I think they use those kind of soft words to see that things can improve. But however, to my understanding, and also to my knowledge, things do not change.
Yeah, but just imagine a whole generation. In the space of 10 years, half a million people have been killed. I also see this used when people are referring to the assassination of Kizito, and people are saying it was mysterious or it was suspicious. Like, really? You still suspect these people after 500,000 people have disappeared? you still suspect them after they've done this. In fact, we started out this conversation saying that most people who know Rwanda know it through the Hollywood film Hotel Rwanda. The real life hero of that film is Paul Rusesabagina. It's been 10 months now, almost 10 months. What happened to him? If anybody still, doubts or thinks it's mysterious, or what actually do you want to share with the audience what happened to Paul Rusesabagina? A man who sheltered over 1,200 people during the genocide.
I know that Paul Rusesabagina was, they used it at that time, but he was absolutely kidnapped in Dubai, and the treatment he'd been receiving is inhuman treatment. You can't imagine, a person who was seen as a hero. I remember he used to be praised, and then later on, what happened to him could happen to anyone else, including him, myself, and then later on he became an enemy of the country just simply because he didn't want to see. Maybe he saw things in a different way. To me, in a democracy, we don't have to see things, the same way. So you can see things in your own way. I can see things in my own way, as long as we, as long as what we do, it's something that we think is right, not only for for you, also for the country, and everyone we know, and the people still think what happened to him should never have happened to anyone.
And that, I think this is a good example for anyone that maybe has some doubts around your brother's story. If somebody as well known around the world as Paul Rusesabagina can be abducted, not in Rwanda, but outside of Rwanda, kidnapped, taken to Rwanda, tortured, with the bright spotlight of the whole world basically looking at his case. Imagine your brothers who just happen to be ordinary citizens, and that's why I say it's important that these things are known. That we actually talk about how our generation is really being targeted, and the numbers show it. And not only that, but if you refuse to cooperate, you refuse to sign the oath, or you refuse to be a servant of this regime, then they come after you with violence. However, I think they bank on the fact that most people just don't speak out.
Actually, Claudia, you're right. That's what also makes me, makes me sad. As you said, my two brothers were ordinary people. They had nothing to do with politics. They were struggling, they want to feed their families. They want to live happily, but no one will ever imagine that, they will pay such a heavy price, not because they have done anything, but because they are related to someone like me, Look, let's put this in context. People do not need to be, in politics, that's what I've seen when I read those reports with my experience. In Rwanda, people, you don't have to be in politics, to be to be persecuted or to be tortured. What you see, so there's a number of things that you you may end up being a victim of. So being related to someone, also refusing to do something, or refusing to say something, or being part of something. You see, and so that's what the problem is. So at the end of the day, you end up saying that every Rwandan, you may wake up today and you may find yourself in trouble.
Well, thank you for that. I do think that you talked about the Universal Periodic Review. We talked about the Hollywood film Hotel Rwanda. So now we're basically talking about the role of the international community. What would you like to see the international community do in light of this prevalent practice of enforced disappearances?
Look, we also keep talking about international community, but so personally, I would like international community to rise up, in the protest. Each time a human rights violation occurs, and they should also be relentless in following up on those atrocities. And that's what we are requesting, the UN to do. Secondly, international community also should put the pressure, on Rwanda, on the Rwandan government, also with other governments that violate human rights, human rights, and possibly in putting them on, in putting pressure on them, also ask them to launch an independent investigation, to my brothers, enforced disappearances, and of course with other countless others who disappeared. And if they don't produce them, the international community must also act and launch their own investigation and take action, as is done when state actors commit such atrocities. And of course, last but not least, perpetrators of this kind of crime must be held accountable and make sure that the justice is served, because the victims need to see justice prevail. Otherwise, we can't keep, those kind of injustice unpunished.
Yeah, and I think that's going to take all of us making an effort to push the international community to act. We have to raise our voices. Most people just remain silent again. And that takes me to the next question. Seeing what you just said about that, what would you advise Rwandan families, or Rwandans, individuals, and whose families and family members are victims of enforced disappearances? But even those who aren't, maybe who haven't had anybody, affected by this, what would you advise the Rwandan community to do?
Look, so before I advise them, I can see that many ones now have stood up. They started, speaking out. So it's a simple thing. So speak out. Do it as soon as possible. If not, if you speak out, and if your rights are being violated, and there's no answer, there's no outcome, take legal action where necessary. And that's I always love to say this. See something, say something. Because silence is the worst thing people can do. So put urgency in the matters that save lives instead of waiting until they know every single details of what happened. And that's the work we do here, for example, as part of my work I do here. We have many people that we always speak for.
Absolutely, appreciate it.
I can take, for example, an example of Aboriginal people that we work with. Many refugees who come here from different countries. So we always share with them what they have. We always want to share with us what have happened to them. And we always also teach people how they can stand, for themselves, speak up if they see something. So step out of your comfort zone, please, and help other human beings. For those living outside of Rwanda, it is very important and imperative that they use their voices to make sure the world knows what's going on. That way, no one makes the excuse that they didn't know about these atrocities. We lived through it. We faced it. We experienced it. So
that's
the case of my brothers. So the case of my brothers is a case almost every Rwandan can relate to, and therefore, of course, should take action on. So do not wait. I always say, do not wait until it happens to you. Prevention is always better than a cure.
No doubt about that. The prevention is better than cure is so real. It's easy to wait until the problem happens versus getting ahead of it and dealing with it. But even when it happens, it's always best to actually do something about it, get it resolved, or find the best way to get the best result out of it. And I echo your call for people to speak up, speak out before it happens, and when it happens, speak out even louder, because it's harder to deal with the problem that's already happened than it is to prevent it. But once it's done, we should not stop and say, oh, it's done. We should do something. And, of course, that isn't necessarily an easy thing. And, we have to stand with you and others like you and others who are in this situation, so that you don't stand alone. Because one of the things that you deal with is being demonized because you're taking a stand against this regime. You know, there's all these smear campaigns because you refuse to be an agent, because you refuse to you know, I mean, they take the oath to behead somebody if they refuse to take a part. And obviously, as you can see, it's not just the fact that you take the oath, it's the fact that you refuse to cooperate. So talk about some of the demonization and the smear campaigns that happened to you since you know, since you refused to cooperate with the inquiries of the government of Rwanda, and then they turned around and abducted your brothers, and you still refuse to be quiet. What's happened since?
That's a good question, actually. But I was expecting it. So unless you're not born in Rwanda, unless you don't infer what happens in Rwanda, so there's no surprise, of course, since refusing the initial request to be used to be, you know, an agent. So of course, I've been subjected to harassment from the, you know, from the Rwandan government via its media. So for example, look what happened yesterday. What the Ighe.com wrote yesterday, you know, about me. Look at what the
newspaper. That's a newspaper.
Look at look at what the News Times wrote about me yesterday. You know, look, I wish I repeat again, as I repeat like one year ago, why Ighe.com or the newspaper can't reach out to whoever they think is bad. But there's no one is bad, you know, until you prove it. So they've been, of course, smear campaign to tarnish, you know, my, you know, my image, to tarnish, to tarnish my credibility. But what I can say, so I repeat again, and I always repeat this: the Rwandan authorities have refused to acknowledge that they abducted my brothers, and will provide no information about whereabouts or welfare of my brothers. I think Ighe.com is listening. I think the News Times is listening.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
I have evidences. I repeat today. So I wish before you wrote those articles, they should reach out to me and ask me some questions so I can answer them. So in other words, they have ultimately been uncooperative in providing information about the whereabouts they are. Instead, of course, as I said, they've been running this smear campaign to tarnish my image, especially my credibility. But the good thing, Claude, whoever reads those newspaper, go and read the comments. You will see what the Rwandans now are thinking. You know, read the comments. And even some foreigners, people who sometimes come across with those these information articles, they said, what kind of paper is this? What kind of newspaper is this? Are those journalists or just like kids, you know, kidding, or they are dreaming? So, of course, these things happened, and I was expecting that will happen. But you know what? It encourages me, and also it motivates me to continue the fight of freedom, also the fight of truth, because I want the truth to be told. Also, I want the truth, to be heard. That's what the Rwandans are hungry, for. We are hungry for truth. We are hungry for freedom, and I always be, the person of the truth. I'll repeat again to those on newspaper that I know what I'm saying. I'm not making up anything. So I'm not them. That's what they do. But if I don't, if I'm saying this, I'm saying this because I know that I know what I'm saying, and I always say what I'm saying because I know that I have the truth.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. And it looks like a lot of what they write is really to try to attack your credibility. So it's a good thing that you've taken it even further to show that you have evidence.
Look, surprisingly, as soon as they finish writing those articles, they share with their, their own people here. Then they start sharing between themselves, and then end up coming to me say, these articles are being shared by these people, are being shared by these people. And we tell them these rubbish articles. It's not, the content is nothing. So read the article that was written yesterday by the so-called journalist Albert. You will see. And then you wonder what kind of professionalism is that. But to me, I'm ready. I'm ready to tell the truth, and I'm ready to fight for my freedom.
Yeah, I will have to say, I really appreciate your commitment to the truth and to freedom. And the truth definitely sets you free. It sets whoever is living the truth,
Yeah.
you know, and accepts the whole truth is living free, and you are living free in spite of those threats. And to me, those newspapers, what it shows when they try to attack your credibility and what you say and what you do, it proves the stages of the truth. You know, that says it's by Arthur Schopenhauer. It says all truth passes through three stages. First, it is ridiculed. So I'm sure there are people who think there's nothing to do, you know, there's nothing, that no outcome that will come out of this, but they are wrong and mistaken, that's for sure. Second, it is violently opposed. This is what happens to all of us, you know, and a lot of times there is no way that you'll have 100% of the people agreeing with what you say. But a lot of people will oppose you because they are opposing, because your truth is inconvenient. The truth you tell, not your truth, the truth that you put out there is inconvenient. It makes them uncomfortable. So then they will come at you in violent ways. This time they've made death threats to you, to your life, and they've taken members of your family, and still you have not backed down because they would have taken them anyway. And then third, it is accepted as self-evident. And people like you are truth tellers and who wouldn't back down and continue to commit to it are celebrated, and statutes are built, you know, for them. So eventually, at some point, even people who were against what you say now will pretend that they supported what you're doing. But those who support what you're doing today, I will have to. I would like to express my gratitude to everyone that supported the work that you're doing, not only for your brothers, but for others who are victims of enforced disappearances. And so with that, I would actually like to ask you another question. Did you have a comment to make on that?
Yeah, well, just another comment on those who wrote those newspapers. I encourage everyone to keep those articles for future evidence, because those articles that are there to tarnish or to promote propaganda, one day there will be justice for those involved. Remember what people used to say, Eric Telem and the Kangura newspaper used to do. That's what they're doing, like Irushasha, like Igi and the newspaper. So I encourage everyone to keep those kind of articles, because one day we will need them.
Yes, always, always, always keep the documentation. So I would like to, before we engage with the audience, we have a number of comments and questions from the audience, but I would like to ask what I think is the most important question here. What would you like to see the people in audience do about this issue for your brothers, but also for thousands and maybe actually millions, I'm sure, at this point, because we talked about one generation being over 500,000 of one generation, you know, going missing. And this is, you know, both in Rwanda, but maybe even broadly outside of Rwanda. But what would you like to see the people in audience do? Again, considering most people here who follow these broadcasts are not Rwandans, and many may not be familiar with Rwanda.
This is a great question, Claude, and I'm glad that you asked this question, you know, as concluding question. So what I would simply like to ask people, as I said before, speak out, share conversations such as this, so that the world can be more informed, because the world is not informed of what's going on. So, and through sharing this kind of conversation, we are educating them about the things that we've been through. Because those in a position of authority should exercise the authority and sanction those involved for those human rights abuses. For the general audience that watching us right now, share those conversations widely on your social media. It goes a long way, even your social media cycle and audience, because this is only one way the world will know. And once the whole world knows, the smear campaigns and intimidation will lose their power, because the truth, as I said, will be much more widely shared. The truth must be told. As more and more the world knows this and take action, so those in a position of authority will be then compelled to act, even if they would rather not do anything. So once again, I encourage everyone watching to use your power and influence, which may simply be simple as sharing this story and other stories on your platform for a start. When you see something, say something. We can't keep saying this injustice and then you say, I don't care. Yes, you don't care today, but you may care tomorrow when it is too late.
Thank you, Noel, for that. Let's not say I don't care. Let's also not act in ways that don't care. Like caring in your heart and keeping it there is just as good as those, again, using the analogy of gift cards. You have a bunch of gift cards. When you keep that inside and you don't actually take action, it's like having all these gift cards in your house. You don't use them to shop and they expire and people are dying. So do something, help, take action. And so, Noel, with that, we will go ahead and start engaging with our audience. Again, thank you for encouraging everybody to take action, to do something, as small as it may be. Anybody watching here, I'm sure you know that you are powerful. If you didn't know that, now you know. You are powerful. Your social media is powerful. Whatever you can share with the public, your 2 feet matters. Your voice matters. Use your voice to support people like Noel, to support people whose voices are not even heard, to make sure that these issues of enforced disappearance, is taken seriously. And so, Noel, with this case that you filed with the UN, I'm looking forward to the result, to what happens out of this case.
Thank you, Craig. I encourage everyone also to do so, because there's, as you know, there's thousands of people whose, their beloved ones have also disappeared. So I also encourage them, to seek justice. That's it.
Yeah. Don't wait until it happens to you. Do it before it does. Prevention is better than cure. So there was a question by someone named Z asking if there was any legal action taken against the ambassador that threatened you, or the High Commissioner.
Look, there was a very well conducted investigation. So the investigation is conducted by police, but due to his immunity, so they could not proceed, with prosecuting him. Yes, they've been investigation, but they could not proceed due to his immunity. Or diplomatic immunity, maybe, in other words.
So diplomatic immunity, basically, which is a good thing that you've taken this case internationally then. It looks like there was an exchange here between Kagoma Egg and Delphian, where Kagoma Egg was asking, how long are we going to stand idle and watch ours led to the slaughterhouse? Delphian was saying that Rwandans are always helpful that the regime would change their wicked ways, but they don't seem to want change. They do not care about their citizens, and it's a shame. I mean, I think this goes for both the government and the people. If you want change, you got to do something. You can't want something to change and just do nothing about it. But go ahead and if you can speak to this question of how long I think you've kind of continued to speak on it, saying that we should all speak up. But they were asking, how long are we going to stand and watch it happen to us? and our loved
No,
ones.
that's what I've been always saying. Yes, we wait and we see this coming, but what can we do? Citizens, if that kind of injustice being committed, or also facing them, there's a way that they can do things. It's, as I said, speak out, seek for assistance. As I said, my case, as I can share with him, we did our best, to seek help, from the government, but there was nothing. That's when we decided to go somewhere else. So I encourage also those who become victims of what we experienced, also to seek help or do the same thing that we did.
I think the other thing that your case and your work is showing is don't quit. Do not quit. When something happens and it shuts you down, don't quit. Keep going. Be persevere and keep pushing. There was another question here from Patrick Kabamenshi asking, operating in embassies, how many laws do they break daily under the world's nose? So this high commissioner and these meetings that they're holding and things like that, the report itself say that it was illegal, but did the authorities say if it was breaking the law or not? Has anybody even been kicked out? Because I know in other countries outside, other than Australia, places like Sweden, South Africa, and Kenya, Mozambique, and a few other places, diplomats have been expelled from those countries. Has anything happened in Australia? Is that
so look, each country,
laws, or is it legal for them to do that?
Yeah, what I understand, I've got maybe two answers to Patrick. So the first of all, each country may review its laws in regard to diplomatic immunity. Some countries have amended it, where if someone, even if they are diplomats and they are engaged in those malicious activities, they may end up being prosecuted. But however, I don't think those laws work here. But other countries work. I've had some cases where the number of diplomats have been expelled due to maybe for being involved in those kind of activities. But here, what I can say is that the people I know who were involved in those activities are no longer around. I'm not sure what happened. Maybe they've been removed somewhere else, but the people I know are no longer here. Those people involved, they've been posted somewhere else.
Great. And then there's a number of comments here. There's a comment from Ivo Will saying that the days of the liars are numbered. There's also a comment from Z saying that the mafia operates in the dark. They fear the light. Now we have to start exposing them, put names and faces out there so that everyone knows who they are. And then Jenny says, Rwandan police is there to persecute anyone, not prosecute, persecute, like go after anyone who doesn't agree with the government or criticize their actions, not to protect citizens. It's a shame and it's sad. That seems to be what happened to you.
Exactly. That's a good actual answer. They know. Because my family went to police many times. I spoke to them many times. I spoke to Rabe many times. But nothing happened. And we knew that they are the ones, as Janti said, who persecuted them. Persecuted, not prosecuted. Who persecuted them.
And are persecuting you. They're persecuting you and others. Not just your brothers, but you yourself are being persecuted with saying that you have, a gun pointed at your head.
And it's a shame, as there's this proverb in Kinyarwanda saying, kurega uregera, things like that.
So basically seeking justice from the person who committed the injustice. Kurega,
Yeah, so Uregani, Uregela, things like that. Yeah.
And there's something else. Someone else spoke about the silence. South Yan saying everyone's silence is sickening. Even some people who have been victims of the same, like cannot report or condemn it. If only everyone who knows something said something. So it looks like your message of see something, say something is resonating with a lot of people. In fact, there are a number of people who repeated it in the comments. And then there's another person who's agreeing with Delphian, saying that we've been so passive, always waiting on something to happen, to react. Why does someone have to die or disappear for us to speak out? Our passive attitudes need to end. And then there's a question from Pacific Tomo asking whether you've been interviewed by the newspapers, the Rwandan newspapers that are smearing you, because Pacific is claiming that they've never seen anybody that's smeared by those newspapers being interviewed by those newspapers.
So that's what actually surprised me, was all kind of professionalism as a journalist. Before you publish an article, so you had to, to work around that article that you want to, to publish. So talk to the, to the owner of the story, talk to the person, who's being involved in that story. Then when you publish that story, you say, so this is the person that is being, mentioned the story. We interviewed him, we spoke to him, and then this is his response. So since this smear campaign started, they never approached me. I don't need to be approached by them anyway. I know what I'm saying, and I know what I'm witnessing, and I always say that, but they never approached us. As long as I don't think they even approach anyone else. As long as they know that you have a story which is opposite, their own story. That's why you said the content of the story, when you read it, you wonder what kind of professionalism is this? Is it me or something else? So unfortunately, none of those Rwandan newspapers have ever interviewed me or asked for interview. I would be happy to speak it to any, to anyone, if it happens, they want to give me an interview. But so far, I've never been given an interview. But I'm not forcing them to give me an interview, because I know my story. No one should tell my story, because I'm the one who owns my story. I own my story. And surprisingly, the opposite way, the many newspapers that have interviewed me, especially the newspaper from the Western world, they have contacted the Rwandan government. They have contacted the embassy officials. They have also contacted people also involved in the story. And before they publish the story, they always double check to make sure that the story is balanced. So that's what I advise also those journalists from Rwanda, they should do. They should remember the professionalism. They should remember what they have learned from universities. They should also remember other trainings or workshops related to journalism that they have done. Because remember, we know what media did in the past. We should learn from that, past. And see if there's way that they can change the narrative they always have, to tarnish or to make people look bad, because those people have different stories to say.
Yeah, I think that's another lesson learned here. What you're saying here, your story, you own your story, you tell your story. And that's important. That is what I believe every person, every Rwandan, and every person around the world should do. Own your own story. Don't let somebody else tell your own story, because it can, when they start doing it, they will use it and they will bastardize your story. They'll turn it into something else. And as you say, you don't need those newspapers. Your voice is heard around the world. and you're always welcome on HMG. So with that, I would like to ask that you make your concluding remarks. The big drive home. What should we take home with with us about this conversation? What to do. As you said earlier, just drive home your message, and then we'll thank our audience and sign off.
Well, thank you, Claude. So the message for today is to know that you are the one to say something. You are the one who owns something. You are the one who can, call for help, for your people. And the people that I'm talking to, it's you, it's also everyone who's watching, even those who will watch this later on, that injustice must deal with truth. Because when you protect the perpetrators from being, prosecuted, you're promoting that injustice. In return, when you talk that you don't want injustice to happen, you allow it to happen. So therefore, you're doing nothing. So my message today is to encourage everyone to speak out about injustice. To see something and then say something. My message today is to ask many people, especially the victims of the enforced disappearances, that it's not by speaking up about what they went through or about their beloved ones, and seek help. If you can't get help where you're hoping to get help anywhere else. Share with the HMG people to help you spread the word. To call for help. There's other people. There's many people who've been very active in social media. They have been helping many Rwandans in different ways. Please approach them. Go to them. If you can be given a platform in Rwandan newspaper to tell your story, to tell your pain, to tell your pain, and then come to HMG or to other platform, and then seek for help. Please don't sit in a comfortable zone, waiting to get manna from heaven. No, get out, ask for support, get out and speak out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Noel, for everything that you shared, for your courage, especially. And I am definitely, I personally stand with you in pursuit of justice for your brothers. I personally stand in solidarity with all other people who have lost people, who have lost their loved ones to enforced disappearances. I stand in solidarity with those who have decided to make a commitment to the truth, as you said, commit to the truth, because the truth will drive out injustice. I stand in solidarity with those who have made a commitment to justice, because as MLK said, the arc of history is long, but it bends toward justice. And no matter how long it takes, no matter what, justice will be served. Justice will eventually prevail. And let's not stand on the sideline. As you said, the lessons from this conversation are: don't sit in your comfort zone, don't cherry pick, don't pick and choose when to speak up and when to be quiet. If you see an injustice, see something, say something. If something is wrong, do something about it. Don't simply sit. And prevention is better than cure. Try to resolve a problem before it happens. But if it happens, persevere. Like Noel said, don't stop. Do something different, do something creative, do something innovative, do something to deal with that problem, because you've got to do something to get to resolve the problem. Otherwise, it will continue to prevail. And Noel, I think that eventually the more people continue to speak out, as you're encouraging others to come out and speak and tell their stories and also follow up on these cases, I do believe that the dictatorship, the Paul Kagame's dictatorship in Rwanda, will crumble under the weight of the pressure that is exercised by all of us, to respect human rights. And I thank you for your contribution in that, and I comfort your family, because it's not an easy thing to go for years not knowing what happened to your relatives. Even if they have passed away, you want to give them a proper burial. So it's not an easy thing, and I comfort you and your family. And again, thank you for your courage.
Thank you, Chloe, for your your kind words, and same way also comfort for those who their loved ones have been missing and they never been able to find them. So let's join our hands and let's pray and hoping that one day we may see them alive, or even if they are no longer alive, at least one day we may organize a proper funeral for them. But remember to keep hope alive.
Yes.
Let's
and
keep
as you
hope
say,
alive, and will be one day the truth will come out and justice be served.
I'm going to have to share this conversation with Shaka Sali. We started out saying that he is terrific, and now you say keep hope alive. That's one of the things that he likes to say.
Nothing is forever. Nothing is forever.
That's right. That's right. And as I said earlier in the introduction, Noel's story is not for us. It's not for you, anybody in the audience, to just feel sorry for him or to say sorry for what happened to you. It's to take action. It's to inspire. It's to get you to get up, get out of your comfort zone and do something. And with that, I'd like to thank our sponsors, HMG Studio, African Great Lakes Action Network, or AGLAN, Friends of the Congo, and Black Star News, who sponsored this conversation. Thank you so much, Noel. And I'll turn it over to Brother Freeman Bikorwa Singirangabo to conclude this conversation for HMG. Thank you so much.
Wow, Claude, thank you so very much for such a powerful and educational testimony. Noel, we want to really salute you and your family, and for the courage to pursue justice by all means necessary. I also want to pull a word out here for all of you guys, especially Africans who have stories to tell. This is our time to tell our stories. You ask no permission from no one. We must tell our truth, tell our story, our ways. That is one thing that we are always going to talk about here at HMG Studio. And we want to encourage each and every one of you who have a story. Don't you ever, ever, ever put yourself in a position that you cannot speak just because of fear, persecution, or anything that suggests otherwise. And with that in mind, we hope that you have enjoyed this powerful message of in pursuit of justice. We have more to come, and we also encourage you to share to as many as possible for these broadcasts, especially those of you on social media, since the majority of you will not be able to have an opportunity to follow this conversation live from our local televisions. And with that in mind, thank you kindly to all of you, our viewers from all over the world. I am Freeman Singirankabo with HMG Studio here in Washington, D.C. Goodbye for now.